guys, it's Amber. Welcome to my channel. I post book and home fragrance content, and I'm so happy to have you here with me. I am doing my September wrap up, my books and bars, so I go over the books that I read for the month, and then the wax melts that I melted with them. At the end, there will be timestamps for you, so if you want to, skip to wherever you want, that is available for you. So of my official September TBR, I finished 6 out of the 9, and I'll put what is that even called? A graphic. There we go. I could not think of the name. I'll put the graphic up now. So I read 6 out of the 9 books for you to peruse, and then I'm going to talk about it now. Okay, so I'll go ahead and do the ones that I DNF'd first. The first one, there were 2, no, actually, was there 3? There was 3 that were on the official TBR that I did DNF. The first one was Fury Born. I didn't even DNF that one. I just never got to it. I decided to just return it. I barely had enough time left in the month, and it was a thick book, and so I was like, no, I'm good. I'm gonna pass that one. So that one did not get read. And then the 2 that I did DNF, one is Sanctuary, or no, this is not Sanctuary of the Shadow. This is A Study in Scarlet Women by Sherry Thomas. I did discuss this in one of the book tag videos I recently did. I just really haven't been into mysteries lately. And this is probably the 3rd or 4th mystery book that I've tried this year. This is a historical mystery. It's a different take on Sherlock Holmes, actually, where there's a woman that is actually Sherlock Holmes, but that's like her pseudonym. But Holmes is her last name. So I just couldn't get into it. I don't know. I don't know why. I'm just not into mysteries right now. And I was like, I'm not going to force myself to read something that I'm just not enjoying. And the writing wasn't bad. There was nothing wrong with the books. And Sherry Thomas has a YA fantasy series that is like a 5-star series for me. I did recently haul that a couple months ago for you guys. So I loved that series. But yeah, it's just the fact that I'm just not into mysteries right now. So that was one I DNF'd. And then the other one I DNF'd, it's actually been returned to the library, so I'll have it right here for you. Sanctuary of the Shadow. I had been trying to read it for the last couple months, and I just couldn't get into it. It's a fantasy book, and it just wasn't for me. So I DNF'd it. I tried for 2 months, and I was like, yeah, I'm done. We're good with that. Okay. I'd rather read things that I'm enjoying, obviously, because that is why I read, because I love to read. And I don't want to have to push myself through a book that I'm not really liking. Okay, so let's move on to stuff that I did finish. I did end up reading 9. I think I said that already. So even though all 9 weren't from my TBR, I did actually read 9 books. So the first one I read was from my official TBR, and that was a middle grade read called The House at the Edge of Magic. And I can't remember who wrote this, because you'll see who wrote it right here on the screen, because I don't have the author listed right here for me. It was a cute middle grade book. I gave it a 3 stars. It is about a girl who is a thief. Her name is 9, and she ends up coming across in her day to be out like pickpocketing. She ends up pickpocketing like this small house. It was like a small house from this lady, and she ends up dropping it, if I'm remembering right. She ends up running away from some some people that are trying to catch her because they realized that she had been trying to steal things. And as she's running into this alleyway, she drops the house, and all of a sudden it like grows to like full size in the alleyway, at the end of the alleyway. So she's like, what in the heck is going on? And she goes in and she meets some magical characters. One of them, the like owner of the house, his name is Flabbergast. And him and I can't remember the other characters' names in it, but a fun cast of characters. They're kind of cursed. They're not able to get out of the house. And so they try to get her to break the curse for them. So there's like a mystery for them to solve, but not a mystery like what I was saying. I'm not enjoying right now. It was a fun mystery part of the book that had to do with their curse. So it was fun. I think I said it already, 3 stars, cute middle grade book. Great for middle graders, honestly. Okay, next one I read is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. This is my first Ashley Poston book. I really did love the story in this one. So story-wise, I would rate it 5 stars, but because of some of the content in it, it dropped it down to 4.5 stars for me. It's about a girl named Clementine who ends up inheriting a apartment from her aunt that recently passed away. And she ends up kind of knowing about it ahead of time, but it never happens to her until the things in the book, obviously, so she doesn't believe that it'll happen. There is like a time jump in the apartment to where sometimes the apartment will, just in the apartment, take a person back 7 years, and then of course the person that is there 7 years earlier, they're kind of in the future with the other person. So Clementine, she was hoping that it would happen for her, but it wasn't ever happening because she misses her aunt and wants to see her aunt again. And then it ends up happening to her. And so she's like, oh, it was real. It does really happen. But she doesn't meet her aunt. She ends up meeting this guy. His name is Ewan, but it's spelled I-W-A-N, but I'm pretty sure the pronunciation is Ewan. And he is there like renting or staying in the apartment while her aunt is on vacation for like the summer or something like that. And so at first Clementine was like freaking out, not like what in the heck is happening. And then she realized, oh my gosh, she just thinks this strange guy is for some reason in the apartment. And then she realizes what happened. And so the story takes place in the 7 years in the past, which is just confined to the apartment. And then it also takes place in present life outside the apartment for Clementine. And it doesn't, I wouldn't say that everything in the apartment time is in the past. It's very, like, it doesn't happen all the time. The time slipping doesn't happen all the time. But I really enjoyed Clementine and Ewan. I enjoyed the relationship that develops between the two of them. Like I said, there is some content. There was quite a bit of swearing, but the story kept me so engrossed that I just tried to ignore it because I'm very sensitive to bad language. And then there might be 2 open door scenes, so just be aware. So this is an adult book, although I don't know why that automatically means it has to have bad language and, all those things. Anyway, that's just me. That's a me issue. But I love the story. I love the magical realism of it. It was very emotional for me. I did cry in a part. The love story was super sweet, and I just thought it was wonderful. The relationship that you kind of see develop in regards to how important Clementine's aunt was to her, and you kind of get little glimpses as she thinks back to her aunt and stuff, to that, just how important she was to her. So it was, like I said, wonderful story, 5 stars for the story, but because of the content, too much for me. And so it dropped it down to 4.5. Okay, moving on. The next one I have, which I don't have the book of either, I had to return it to the library, is One Dark Window. This is by Rachel Gillig. And it is a fantasy book. It's like a gothic fantasy type book. Takes place in a fantastical land, though. It's not like our world or anything like that. So it is about a girl named Elspeth, and which is funny because you don't see that name very often, and that was actually one of the names that I was considering for another daughter. And so I was excited to see that. So anyway, Elspeth, and the male main character's name is Raven, and he is like the head guard for this king. And Elspeth is a girl that you end up finding out she has this other presence in her head. So they live in a world where a sickness ends up taking place. And because of this sickness, you end up with magic. Not everybody that gets sick ends up with the abilities, but some people end up with magical abilities, and the king and his ancestors, the whole lineage, wants to kill those that have these abilities. But there's also other magic that is approved. And the magic that is approved is like through these cards, and each different card, depending on what the card is, has different abilities that you can use. And so it is about Elspeth, like I said, who she ends up, when she's young, getting the fever. And she does end up with abilities, but she doesn't really know that she has them. She just ends up it's close to the beginning. She ends up touching a card that she sees, one of the magical ability cards that her uncle has. And she ends up absorbing the card, pretty much, the power of the card. And from that, she has this nightmare that's inside her. And so you get like 2 points of view in one person, and then Raven is, like I said, he's in charge of like the guard that are there to hunt those that are that have magic, that aren't supposed to, type of thing. So there's a lot that actually goes on. You find out that there is like a secret sect of people that are actually trying to find all the cards to be able to get rid of the curse, because the magic that people end up getting from the fever, it can end up killing a person, overloading them at the end, or they either go crazy or they can end up dying, that sort of thing. And so there are certain people in it that are trying to find every single card to break this magical curse that's happening. So it's really good. I know I'm not explaining it very well. I jump around. I'm just very scatterbrained, but I do highly recommend this book. For me, it was about 4 stars, maybe 4.5 stars. I did really enjoy it enough to pick up the second book, which is right here, Two Twisted Crowns. So I do definitely recommend the series. It's not super scary, even though it kind of sounds like it is, but it is like dark and atmospheric. But I had to say the nightmare that's in Elspeth, it kind of has a little bit of a humorous side to it. So I did enjoy that one, and I will pick up the next one. So that was next. The next book I read was Love at First Book, and this is by Jen McKinley. And this is about a girl named Em. I think her full name was Emily. Yeah, Emily. And she moves from New York. She was a librarian in New York City. And she moves to Ireland because she gets hired to be like a personal assistant to this famous author. Very similar, kind of similar. I wouldn't say very similar to, now I don't even remember the name of the book. I just read it and gave it 5 stars back in like April. I cannot think of the name. That one was a little different, but it is like a reclusive author. I'll put the book title down below since I'm not remembering what the other one's called. But this one, anyway, there's an author, and this author wrote children's books that really helped Em when she was younger. And all of a sudden, for the last few years, this author stopped writing and didn't finish the final book in the series. And she ends up hiring Em to be her like personal assistant to try and finish this last book. And along with that, she's to work in the town's bookshop, which is owned by the author. The author's name is Siobhan, by her son Kieran. So Kieran owns the bookstore, and Em is supposed to work in it during the times that Siobhan doesn't need her to help her be inspired to write the book. So it takes place there. The atmosphere was super fun, cozy, small Irish village. I loved that vibe. It was super fun. I did really enjoy Siobhan and Em's relationship. What kind of turned me off from the story was I didn't really like Kieran. Not really. He just rubbed me the wrong way, and I didn't like the relationship together really. Wasn't like not rooting for it, but it was the grumpy vibe he had, and sometimes I do enjoy that. Actually, most of the time it was like grumpy sunshine. I do enjoy that trope. She's not what I would say is sunshine necessarily. It tackled some interesting issues about her past and her relationship with her mother, who is still alive and very like verbally abusive. So it talked about some things like that. So I had some interesting takes to the story. Like I said, I loved the relationship between Em and Siobhan. Just kind of the relationship between the male and female main characters fell flat for me. And so I only gave it a 2.5 stars. The only reason it got the 0.5 is because of the relationship between the author and Emily. So that's that. Okay, next one is Once More Upon a Time, and this is by Roshani I can never say her last name right. Chokshi. There we go. And this, of course, as you can see, is a small book. It's only a little over 100 pages. So novella sized, honestly, 131. And this is adorable. This was super, super fun book. So this is about a princess named Imelda. And she is technically one of the 12 dancing princesses. and it's kind of like what happens after the story. So she ends up marrying a prince named Ambrose, and the two of them end up getting cursed by a witch. And the curse ends up being, or no, she gets cursed. She gets cursed, and Ambrose, to break the curse, makes the deal with the witch to where he sacrifices his love for Imelda, and to where he doesn't feel love for her anymore. So they don't really love each other anymore, to break the curse. But they're still married, and they live in this kingdom. They're given this kingdom that's supposed to be a kingdom ruled by people that are truly in love with each other. And because they're not anymore, they have a year and a day to live there to rectify the situation. And if they don't, they get kicked out and have to go back to wherever they have to go to. So this takes place after the year and the day, and they end up going on this quest, and a relationship develops from there. They realize that, hey, just because we had been cursed doesn't mean that we couldn't have developed feelings again, that sort of thing. So they had wasted all this time. So it's an adventure, it's a fairy tale, it's whimsical, it's magical. It was so fun. And this got a 4.75 for me. I really, really enjoyed it. I feel like if it had been a little longer of a story, if the characters had been fleshed out a bit more, it would have gotten a 5-star for me, from me. But even so, being this tiny little novella-sized book, it was close to 5 stars. It was super fun and whimsical. My type of story for sure. So, Once More Upon a Time. Okay, after that, I read, right? Yeah. Magic Under Glass, and this is by Jacqueline Dollamore. And this was on my Goodreads TBR for many, many years. I think 2009 was when I put it on. And I always like to try and go back to the beginning just to see what do I need to read, or what do I want to read that has been on there for a long time, so I can, it's always good to look back at the old ones instead of constantly just picking up the new stuff. So, excuse me. So this is about a girl named Namira, and she comes from a land. So this takes place in a fantasy world, but it's very close to what I would consider like India and England. So she comes from like an India style land, and she immigrates to England, or whatever it was called. I don't even remember what it was called. And this is like during what I would consider the 1800s in those lands. So she emigrates there, and she has a beautiful singing voice. She works in this review where she sings and dances in her like native style type of situation. And she is discovered by this man, Holland, was that his name? Yeah, Holland Perry. He ends up trying to find someone that will sing with this automaton that he acquired and is at his estate. So this automaton plays piano, and then he wants her to sing. And it's a better gig than where she's working. And so she's like, okay, I'll do that. So this automaton is like created from fairies. So there's like fae in this, but they're not, all the fae are like banished. But there are still like the automaton and other things that have been created by fairies. And so she goes to Holland's estate, and she realizes that maybe the automaton's haunted. What's going on? there's something not normal about this automaton, and it kind of progresses from there. It was good. I enjoyed it. I gave it, what did I give it? I gave it a 3 stars. It was YA, which I don't have a problem with. But it was very insta-lovey. You didn't get a lot of development with the characters. There were a couple kind of twists that I thought were interesting in it. And yeah, it was 3 stars. It was good. There is a second book, I think. I found out after I finished that one that I think it was a duology. But I don't know if I would ever get around to reading the second one, but I enjoyed it. It was fine. Okay, the next one I did after that is I finished The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. I still absolutely adore this cover. It makes me so happy every time I look at this. It is just so pretty and whimsical. So this is about a girl named Kyla and her sentient plant Kaz. They end up having to evacuate from the city they live in, where they are librarians, and they've been holed up in this library in Elysium, I think is the name of the land. Yeah. In this great library where she is one of the librarians, and she keeps track of different spell books that she's protects and helps those that are needing to look at them, that sort of thing. So she rescues a bunch of the books because there is a rebellion, and the emperor gets overthrown, and they decide in the rebellion to burn down the library. So she saves a bunch of the spell books that she's in charge of, and she and Kaz, along with those spell books, even though it's like illegal to take the books out of the library unless you are approved to do so, and only like certain like sorcerers. It's a very it's not for everyone. Not everyone can just look at those books. So she takes them to save them, and she and Kaz go to her island where she grew up. What is the name of the island? I don't even remember. Caltray, that's the name of the island. And she goes back home to this island where she grew up. Her parents aren't alive anymore. She moved to the city when she was about 9 or so. She goes back to the island, and it starts from there. So this is a cozy fantasy story. So it's not like high fantasy, super cozy. She ends up renovating her little cottage that she grew up in, and deciding, because she needs to survive, to secretly use the spell books to open a jam shop. She sees there's a need that people don't really have, like fruit and stuff. There's a bakery in town, and her home's a little far away. But there's no like fruit, there's no jam. And her mom had left a book with a bunch of different like homemade recipes, and jam was one of them. So she decides to open up this business and create jam for people. But also she decides to help the island, because the island is dying, because so many of the things that used to be replenished aren't anymore, because the sorcerers stopped coming to help the islands that are on the outskirts. And so like trees are dying, wells are drying up, that sort of thing. So because Kyla is afraid, though, because she doesn't know what happens in the rebellion, she doesn't know if it's okay for her to practice magic. So she calls them remedies, and it's all about her trying to figure out how certain things work in her books to help the people on Caltray. And there's a romance that ensues between her and a guy who knew her from when she was little, but she didn't remember from back then. His name is Laren, and it is super cute. It was really cute. I thought it was going to be 5 stars, but it didn't end up giving me those 5-star feels. It was more of a 4-star read for me. It was very, very cute. And I will keep this book just because I love the cover so much. So that is The Spell Shop. Okay, the next one I read is The Minuscule Mansion of Myra Malone. This is by Audrey Burgess. And this is about a girl named Myra. And this, I thought it was going to be like a romance. It does have romance in it, but it's more of a like women's lit or literary fiction. Well, probably not literary fiction, but yeah, women's lit, just regular fiction. And this is about a dollhouse, but it's not a dollhouse. It's a small-sized mansion that Myra was given to her by her step-grandmother to take care of. And Myra is a recluse, and you find out through the story why that is. And this has dual timelines in it, and I did enjoy both the past timeline and the present timeline. And come to find out with Myra, she ends up creating this blog with her friend's help. Her friend tells her to create this blog, and she does and it becomes famous. And so everyone's talking about it. Everyone loves to see all her different posts about her decorating this mansion. This is magical realism. So there's some magical elements throughout the story that happened with the mansion and that sort of thing. Come to find out, her dollhouse-sized mansion is connected to a full-size version of a home. And she finds that out from a guy named Alex, right? Yeah, Alex. Right, yeah, Alex. Like I said, there's dual timelines, so it's hard to remember who was who. Alex finds out about her blog and sees it, and he's like, what in the world? Because there's like specific like furniture and stuff that she puts in her minuscule mansion that look exactly like the furniture in his mansion, his full-sized ancestral home. And the outside, or he sends pictures of the outside of the mansion and all that, and she's like, she never showed like the outside of her dollhouse sized, and it's exactly the same. Everything is the same pretty much. And so they're connected somehow. So there's the mystery of that. And then you get the relationship that Myra had with her step-grandmother and her grandfather. And you get to see back into those times and about a lady named Willa who is in charge of the mansion, the Alex's ancestral home. And then you get to see a relationship between Willa and her husband and then her son. So it is all about family relationships and about healing those relationships with magical realism thrown into it all. I really did enjoy it. Like I said, I was expecting more romance because I thought it was a romance book. But it was good. It made me cry in some parts of it. I highly recommend this one. This one was really, really good. I would give it a 4 stars. So that is The Minuscule Mansion of Myra Malone. And I would pick up, I think she's written 1 or 2 other books now. This was her debut novel, but I know she's at least published 1 other now. I would pick up more books by her because I did really enjoy that one. Last book is The Ornithologist's Field Guide to Love. And this is by India Holton. And this was a fun book. This was really fun. I would rate it 4.5 stars. This was a romance. It takes place back in the 1800s, Victorian England time, except it's an alternative version of England. There are magical birds. Ornithologists study birds. And Beth is a professor of ornithology at Oxford. I think she's at Oxford, and then this guy named Devon is a professor, but he's at Cambridge, I think. And ends up being a contest to find this super rare bird, and whoever captures the bird gets Birder of the Year, and they get tenure at their school that they're working at, and they get, the prestige and money and blah, blah, blah. So Beth and Devon are out to find the bird. And it goes from there. It was fun. Super cheeky. There isn't one. Is there one open door scene? I think there was like one open door type scene. Not super graphic. There is a lot of like cheeky innuendo though, but it's written in such a funny way that it had me cracking up. But it's super fun. So Beth reminded me quite a bit of Emily Wilde from Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairy series, except that she's not that grumpy, gruff type of person that Emily is at the beginning of that series. But she is very cerebral and isn't good in regards to like emotion and society type of like socializing with people. That is not her strong suit at all. She doesn't get those type of social cues, but she is, in regards to being like Emily, she's more of a very a people pleaser kind of. So she's not grumpy. She's has a very cheerful personality and wants to agree with whatever anyone else says, type of thing at the beginning of the book. So you take place through this journey of them trying to find this bird and all the hijinks that ensue from that. They think they're being chased to be murdered by people, and they end up having to team up. And yeah, it's just fun. I do recommend this one. I will probably read the second one, which is about Devon's cousin, and it's about geography, I think, or something like that instead. Yeah, the geographer's map to romance. So I would pick up the second one, just because they were fun and whimsical and funny, and I just had a good time. So The Ornithologist's Field Guide to Love. And did I say how much I get? 4.5 stars. And that's because a little bit of the content in it kind of knocked the rating down for me. So I do highly recommend that one though, if you're not, especially if you're not sensitive to those types of things. So, okay, moving on. I have to talk about the bars that I did melt with each of the books. So for House at the Edge of Magic, I couldn't not go with this one. That is Hufflepuff Just and Loyal. This is not available right now, but it will be available. I think it's coming back out in November. This and the Other Hogwarts Houses wax. I love it so much. This is like honeyed apple and cinnamon sugar pastry mixed together. Very strong, so yummy. Then for the 7-Year Slip, Squeeze the Day. So Squeeze the Day, I decided to go with. This is available now. It's in the catalog. The nickname that Clementine gets is Lemon, if I'm remembering right. I think that's what he calls her. That's what Ewan calls her. as like a nickname, Lemon. And so I was like, that one works perfectly for that. Then for One Dark Window, I chose Vanilla Chestnut. This is a very spicy, deep type of scent. Clove in it. The clove is this like more prominent note, and then you get the chestnut in it. Not much in the way of vanilla to my nose at all, but I felt like it worked really well for that book, especially with the nightmare element in it. So vanilla chestnut, very good fall vibey scent. And that is this month's scent of the month. Yes. So it is available. And then for Love at First Book, I did Bundle Up. This was part of the holiday collection. And it's a cashmere type of scent. I felt like it was good for the vibe of Ireland in the cold, rainy season that takes place in the book. Then we have Once More Upon a Time. I had to go with Caramel Apple Craze. I am an apple girl. I love apple scents. They're some of my favorites. This smells like a caramel apple, and I felt like it fit the story really well because it was sweet, whimsical, magical type story. Then we have Spooky But Sweet. This was for the next book. Yeah, Magic Under Glass, which was like a love story, but you kind of had the spooky element of the automaton, and so I felt like that was a good fit for that one. So this is like spices. It smells like there's pumpkin in it to me, but they're not in the notes. That one's really good. Then we have for the Spell Shop, I decided to go with Cider Mill, Pumpkin Apple, Cider Spices Perfection. This is one of the best scents that Scentsy has ever made. I really do adore that. So that one is perfect, I felt like, for the Spell Shop when it's talking about her making jam. And this doesn't have raspberries in it, but she does try to start making other types of jam, apple, that sort of thing. So I was like, that one will work perfectly. Then for the Minuscule Mansion of Myra Malone, I chose Around the Campfire. This one, this is a campfire goodness bar. This is like sweet, smoky wood. There is a vanilla element to it as well. This one is great for mixing, but I love it on its own too. It's just so nice. And I felt like this was a good choice for the book in regards to the story that happens in it. I don't want to, no spoilers, but that works really well, I thought. And then last but not least, for the Ornithologist's Guide, Field Guide to Love, is Cashmere and Corduroy. This is just, if you haven't tried this, you need to try this. This is just such a beautiful, cozy, stay in and cuddle type of scent. It's so pretty. It's like vanilla and amber musk, and there's a sweetness to it that is, what is it? It's like a citrus sweetness, and now I can't remember what it's called. But it's so pretty. Oh, bergamot. That's the one I'm trying to think of. There's bergamot in it, and it's so good. This is just, even if you don't normally like those types of notes, give it a try, because this one is worth picking up. So that is Cashmere and Corduroy. So that's it, you guys. That is everything that I read for the month of September, and the wax bars that I did melt as well. To go along with the books. So let me know down below, have you read any of these that I talked about? What have you been reading, or what did you read? You know, that type of thing. What have you been melting? Are you enjoying the fall scents? I'm wishing it was more fall weather than it is, but thank you so much for spending time with me. I appreciate all of you guys. Please like and subscribe if you haven't yet. And until next time, TTFN. Ta-ta for now.